A lot of the information that we learned as a kid is not holding up very well. Like Pluto, it's no longer a planet. And we have come to learn that there are more than 3 states of matter. Similarly, the food pyramid. It was suggested by the USDA in the 90s, and it had a darker side that we were not aware of at the time. Fortunately though, the US government is revising the food pyramid now. Now it's a visual model to help Americans guide their diet. And all of it is to promote good health and lower the risk of chronic disease. In today's video, we're going to unveil the dark side of the US food pyramid. And we're going to see how it came into action and how it affected a whole generation. So let's start. In 1992, the USDA released the Food Guide Pyramid. The basic guidance was to cut the consumption of fats and oils, but also increase the consumption of foods that are rich in carbohydrates. Things like bread, rice, pasta, cereal, and so on. Ads like this were the usual.
Kids bread. I just like the taste of white bread. He loves white bread.
I like wheat bread.
I only like white. I can hear now.
Iron Kids bread has many important nutrients, so it's nutritious.
If she's happy, I'm happy.
The food pyramid also suggested to eat a lot of vegetables, fruit, and include at least 2 servings a day of beans, red meat with poultry, fish, nuts, legumes, and eggs. Even when the food pyramid was being developed, nutritionists had long known that some varieties of fats were essential for human health, and that they could also lower the risk of cardiovascular disease. On the flip side, scientists had nominal evidence that a high intake of carbohydrates was beneficial. But after 1992, more and more research was done on the food pyramid. And today, we know that not only was the food pyramid misinformed, but its prescriptions were harmful and contributed to an unhealthy diet. By promoting the consumption of carbohydrates and denouncing fats and oils, the pyramid gave us a flawed guideline. This is because not all fats are bad, and by no means are all carbohydrates good for our health. Now, the question is, will you hit that like button? If you did, thank you very much. Anyway, the real question is, how exactly did the government and nutritionists get something so crucial, yet so wrong? To understand why the government advised us what they did, we need to take a look at the backstory of this. In the 70s, heart disease and obesity were on the rise in the US. Some concerned politicians held hearings. They were to advise Americans on their diet and health in order to prevent heart disease. In 1977, Mark Hexted, American nutritionist, led a group of scientists to study the connections between food consumption and heart disease. Mark's report encouraged American public to raise their carbohydrate intake from 55% to 60% and advised to reduce the fat intake from 35% to 30% of their total daily calories. From these recommendations, low-fat philosophy became cemented as our official diet. Americans also realized that they could protect themselves against diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and other chronic diseases just by eating a balanced diet. Rather than reducing the consumption of bad saturated fats, we were advised to eat low-fat foods as a whole.
Style noodles than ever before, and still less fat than the leading soup.
You gotta want more.
And lean, tender cuts of chicken.
We were told to eat more sugars and carbs and cut way back on the saturated fat, which turned out to be a bad idea. The first questionable guidelines were replaced by even worse recommendations. At the base of the 1992 Food Guide Pyramid, there were carbohydrates, particularly refined carbohydrates. Things like pasta, bread, and rice. Our body breaks down these carbs into sugar, which is stored in your body as fat. Lovely. These refined carbs trigger most chronic diseases, including obesity, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, dementia, and depression. Since the announcement of the new food pyramid in 1992, a lot of people started to add a lot of unnecessary carbs into their diets. The food industry started to use this as an opportunity to sell their filthy processed carb foods. They marketed these products as healthy and government authorized. Although the food pyramid in 1992 was bad, it was good for making some quick and easy money. The business companies were the ultimate winners. Due to the lacking of the previous food pyramid and in the quest to improve American diet, on June 2nd, 2011, former First Lady Michelle Obama and Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack unveiled the MyPlate as a replacement for the 19-year-old food pyramid guide.
Introduce to you USDA's new food icon, MyPlate.
It was a new icon of the US dietary guidelines. MyPlate had 4 main sections: green for vegetables, red for fruits, orange for grains, and purple for protein. The plate also had a separate blue section for dairy products. The MyPlate model was designed to help visualize the diet, how much of a particular food group should be taken in their plate. It might surprise you, but MyPlate does not include meat as a necessary food group. Instead, it's simply called the protein section. It includes all possible sources of protein, things like meat, beans, and even peas. The new guidelines were designed to see how an ideal meal should look like, without having too many restrictive details. However, the new model isn't foolproof. Some experts suggest that it shouldn't include dairy, while others say that it is way too broad. Some say that we're left with more questions than answers. For instance, is it supposed to represent a single meal or the entire day of eating? But the most confusing part is trying to understand what foods belong to each food section.
I'll have you free in no time, Sam.
You gotta be kidding me.
I mean, there is a website with more details, but it doesn't help you figuring out what to eat for each section. Its biggest flaw is failing to inform the public about calorie density. Different food items have different amounts of calories, and if you're trying to lose weight, MyPlate doesn't do much to help. Eating a nutritious and a balanced diet is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. 80% of premature heart disease and strokes can be prevented through dietary choices and habits. Although there are guidelines, most of it comes through trial and error. What works for you might not work for your neighbor. Click on this video if you want to keep watching more awesome content. Either way, stay sharp, Improvement Gang. I'll see you on the next one.